a minute in silence and invoke the presence of it. So welcome all of you to the Values for Life series, a special Christmas episode, I must say. And we are very fortunate to have with us Sister Judy Rogers joining all the way from Peace Village, US. Thank you so much for joining, Sister. And before we go ahead, I don't know, can you hear some other music as well? No. No, okay, fine. Right. So Sister Judy Rogers has been with the Brahma Kumaris for a long, long time, almost more than 25 years. And she's with us here for the first time. So thank you so much, Sister Judy, for finding time on this very busy Christmas evening for India, Christmas morning for you all there in the US and Canada. So let me speak a few things about her. So she lives in the retreat center in the Catskill Mountains, that is the Peace Village, where she's joining from. And for much of her life, she has really worked on a lot of global projects. And I would like to tell you 3 of them. The first is the Call of the Time Dialogues and Retreats. She's been actively participating in that since 1998. Then the second one is Images and Voices of Hope, which was from 99 to 2019, 20 years. And the last one is Global Functioning Initiative, which was started in 2007. And also she's been a part of the team that produced the big red book called The Story of Immortality. Also, she, along with Sister Gayatri from US, inspired by Dadi Janki's wisdom, came out with this book called Something Beyond Greatness. So as always, I'll speak a few lines about Sister Judy in the form of a poem, and then we move on to the poem on cooperation. So Sister Judy has been serving at the Peace Village. The pace of her service has got a tremendous mileage. Of the Supreme, she is a sparkling and valuable image, holding all virtues and powers in her grand storage. Her talks prevent people from undergoing slippage as she inspires them to have a vision to envisage. For her spiritual wisdom, we indeed pay her a lot of homage, as she says that life is indeed free. Don't worry about any mortgage. So with this, I would now move on to today's value, which is cooperation. So today, she shall guide us on how to build cooperation so that we help each other in life without any hesitation. Life otherwise, with its challenges, can be like a complication, but she provides us with solutions as a simplification. So let's not look at life now with a pessimistic anticipation. The vacuum inside indeed creates a form of spiritual starvation. So for that, let's connect to the Supreme with utmost persuasion that keeps us safe and secure away from Maya's invasion. I'm sure she'll tell us a lot about what Maya is. And with this, I would now request Sister Claudia, who's the center coordinator from Vancouver, to please welcome her with flowers. Over to you. Thank you.
Good morning to everyone. Merry Christmas. And actually good evening for those who are in India, or good afternoon for those who are in Europe. So it's a pleasure to have Sister Judy talking with us about cooperation. Sometimes we don't understand, we don't even see how important the cooperation is in our life. Because it started with the body. When we go through some sickness, we know how much cooperation we take from the body. So the body also takes from the soul, because if we are in stress, we cannot help the body much. So it's quite a very nice value for us to learn deep. And I'm sure that we are going to learn a lot from Sister Judy, because she's quite good on that. So I like to, in the name of everyone, beside Merry Christmas, have a nice bouquet of Christmas with all the colors of Christmas time to give to you.
Very nice.
So welcome from all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Claudia. And thank you to the poet, Brother Manoj. That's amazing. I didn't know you were. I think you have to add that to your signature. Pediatrician, renal transplants, poetry on command.
So thank you so much, Sister Claudia. And before we move on to Sister Judy Rogers' talk, just a few housekeeping instructions. You can click on the interpretation icon. Sorry, we don't have Tamil, Telugu this time for some reasons, but the other languages you can select in. And Sister will be giving the talk, say, for around 50 minutes. And then we'll have question answer sessions. You can please feel free to send the questions to me. So with all this, over to you, Sister Judy. Thank you.
Thank you, Manoj. Hello, everyone, wherever you are. If you're celebrating Christmas, then happy Christmas Eve. The night before Christmas is sometimes as important as Christmas. And if it's not celebrating Christmas, you just finished with the shortest day of the year, the longest night of the year. So we're on our way to the light. So, whenever you have to give a talk on something, you think about it more deeply. And ever since Brother Manoj reached out, I've been reflecting a lot on cooperation. So I'm going to share with you what has come into my mind and my heart. And then I'll be very interested in your thoughts too. So to start with, cooperation is a universal law. It's one of those laws that underlie everything. So in the world of nature, we see that human beings need oxygen, right? We take in oxygen, we put out carbon dioxide, and the entire world of plants takes in carbon dioxide and puts out oxygen. So at this very most basic level, this is cooperation. We see lots of cooperation in the animal kingdom, right? For example, we see pictures of these big rhinoceroses moving through the jungle, and on them is a bird that's cleaning their back. So the bird gets food, the rhinoceros gets cleaned. So you get this kind of cooperation. And now there's a lot of research that says that while it looks like trees in a forest are separate, or even people used to think competing with each other for light, underground, we're told that their roots are actually cooperating. That between the roots of the trees, there's these funguses that deliver nutrients, send messages. If there's a predator coming, if there's a sickness coming, if one of them needs something, that there's this cooperation underground. So in nature, this law of cooperation is universal. We see it in cultures, right? And within a family, you've got the parents, they cooperate to take care of the children. Then as they grow older, the children get more capacity. When the parents are old, the children take care of them. At least this is how it's been in balanced cultures. So what I'm talking about here is when a culture or nature or any system is in balance, cooperation is the natural law. Now, when the body, let's look at the body. Sister Claudia brought up the physical body. And so notice with the physical body, if you have to run for an airplane, you're late and you're running through the airport, your body cooperates, right? Your heart, your lungs, your muscles, they all cooperate for you to run to your gate. And then afterwards, you cooperate back and let them recover. If you hurt yourself, even something as small as a paper cut, your body sends everything healing to the site of the injury, right? Blood comes to the site, the healing body's pharmacy comes to the site. So this cooperation is actually a universal principle. It's in nature outside, it's in our cultures, and it's within us. Now, there's something that travels with cooperation, and I want to raise it at the beginning, and I'm going to come back to it, which is love. So when we learn about cooperation, we learn also about love. Now, I'm not talking here about romantic love, although that's a good thing. I'm not talking here about Hollywood, although that's a good thing. What I'm talking about is that when we have that natural, unlimited love for another, what comes with that is a natural respect. We see them in front of us as worthy, as worthy of being respected, as valuable. What comes with love is mercy. We have this natural feeling that this one deserves our special consideration and sympathy. So we have natural sympathy when we have love. So if someone has something going on that's challenging for them, we have this natural kind of sympathy for that one. So we understand that the way consciousness works, and I'm going to presume that everyone who's here today is a student of consciousness in one way or the other. So we understand that the way consciousness works is it starts with our inner awareness. So our most inner state, and that most inner state, in this case, we're talking about that being love. So if our most inner state of consciousness or awareness is love, that's the seed of cooperation at the end. If we have that state of love in our awareness, then our attitude becomes one of mercy, respect, sympathy, kindness, compassion, right? We have this natural, this flows naturally. We don't have to work at it. The attitude flows from the awareness. And when our attitude has those ingredients, if we're respectful and kind and all of those things, compassionate, then with what vision do we see the other? We see the other with that vision of love. It's natural. We don't have to work at it. We don't have to say, let me love this one. No, that vision flows from the attitude. Now, if your awareness is loving, your attitude is merciful and kind, your vision is loving, what will happen when you open your mouth? Or what will happen when you take action? You will naturally cooperate with that one. You will naturally give them whatever they seem to need in the moment. You won't even think about it. You won't hesitate. You won't say, wait a minute, I don't know about this one. No, because that's your inner state, your outer expression of that will be loving. And I would just say, when we do these acts of love, what happens? When I do this natural act of love towards another, I say something loving, I behave in a loving way. Two things. One is the principle of karma is an action, right? So I do something loving, and what comes back to me is the return of that. So I get a loving response to whatever I did. But the other thing is I get blessings, right? If I look at someone who's just stumbled in some way, they've either physically stumbled or they've said the wrong thing or they've done the wrong thing, and I give them a hand up, they say, bless you. Thank you for that. Bless you. This is the dynamic, the spiritual dynamic of cooperation. Now, what interrupts cooperation? I mean, if this is a natural law, then why aren't we just loving and cooperating with each other all the time? What is the interruption? So I would suggest to you that the real interruption to love and cooperation is ego. Now, ego means that when someone is in a state where they are have ego, they believe that they are more important than anything else around them. They believe that their physical self, their personality, their whoever they are, is primary. So they will have the thought, let me do what works for me. And they'll be fairly oblivious, fairly unaware of the whole system that they're in. And we see lots of examples of this, right? Let's go back to the cooperation in nature. So it works great to have human beings taking in oxygen and plants putting out oxygen, taking in carbon dioxide and putting it out. But if someone looks at the forest and says, let me cut this forest down and sell this wood. Now there's been an interruption in the flow of cooperation. Now, I'm obviously being a little bit simplistic. There are good reasons to cut wood sometimes, but I'm trying to make a point here that when we act out of self-interest first, then we interrupt the flow of cooperation. In fact, someone who is in the consciousness of themselves first, I'm the most important, I need to be served first, I need to be the one who gets the important thing, the valuable thing, whatever's left over goes to everyone else. Someone in that consciousness actually doesn't even see the subtle network of which they are a part. When we have real love, we can look around us and we can see the threads of connection between us and others. We can see how we're a part of a network of relationship, right? And that doesn't just include human beings, it includes animals and plants and everything that's going on. We see that it's all part of the same. And when we look at it with that vision of love, we are aware of that. And therefore we act with more respect. But if we're an ego and we don't see it, then we're very likely to actually break those threads and not even know that we did it. Not even be aware that we have harmed some system, and maybe not even care, right? So not aware and not caring. Now, when this happens at any level, when this happens in nature, when this happens in communities, when this happens in families, when this happens in the body, it creates brokenness, fractiousness. The reason that we have a lot of the breakdown that we have, climate change or civil unrest or broken families or outbreaks of all kinds of physical things, is at root because of this failure to see from a vision of love and cooperation. So we get this brokenness around us, and it can feel a little overwhelming, right? I mean, some of the brokenness is very big. Climate change is a very big brokenness. Civil unrest, whether it's Iran or Ukraine or wherever, families against each other, a lot of sad things happening. It's very distressing, and it can feel too big. Like there's no way around this. There's no way to fix this. Let's have conferences. Let's write treaties. Let's try to repair the damage. But the conferences and the treaties alone don't work. Why? Why don't they work? Because they are the outward expression, but the inner machinery isn't intact. So we can write a treaty, but if we don't have the love and respect behind the treaty, then the treaty will be just empty. We can make laws, we can make promises, but if the feeling, if the spiritual determination isn't there, then we won't be able to heal the thing that's broken. Now, what's the remedy? So the remedy is love, right? If the natural law of cooperation has to do with the presence of this unlimited love, this spiritual love, this human love, whatever you want to call it, and the absence of that creates the brokenness, then the remedy for the brokenness is love. Now, I'm sure a lot of people would say, well, that works way too slow. Things are way too urgent. We can't just sit around and love each other because things, the world's on fire. But actually, without the love, no healing's possible. So what are we talking about with love? Well, I'd say it works on 3 levels. Love of the self, that has to do with self-respect, self-regard, self-care. I know a lot of good people who do not take care of themselves. They exhaust themselves trying to care for others, but they don't take care of themselves, even with things like sleep and food and that kind of basic thing. They don't tend to their own well-being. So care of the self, care of others, right? Care within a family, care within a community. Now, I want to say a word about care and love for others. So I would submit to you that it's very easy to love lovable things. By this, I mean, it's easy to love babies, right? It's easy to love puppies. We have no trouble loving gentle, fragile kinds of things. There's millions of YouTube videos of dogs and cats and elephants being friends with cheetahs and other animals, and people watch them for hours because they're looking for that kind of love. But what about those that are hard to love? Because some of the most broken people, some of the most broken communities, they're not very lovable. They may be insulting, they may be screaming, they may be angry. Can we love them? Or can we only love the cute ones? You see, with love, it's not about that thing out there. It's not like, well, I'll love that thing if it behaves well. But if it behaves badly, I cannot love that thing. I've even heard people say, I have to take care of myself. I can't love that one because they're too disturbing. Fair enough. I get it. But if we can't love them, where does the cooperation come? Where does the healing come from? And where's our love coming from? Because if what we're saying is, I can only love that one if they behave in a lovable way, then actually what I'm saying is, I don't have true love. Because true love is a natural quality of the true self, and it's replenished by our relationship with the one above. But it is our nature to be loving. That's why we love babies so much, right? We look at their little eyes and they're so loving. We just adore them. That's the nature of the true self, to be loving. Not that we withhold our love if someone behaves badly and give them our love and cooperation if they behave well. No. Love and cooperation is innate in the self. When I said it was a universal law, it is inside of all creation. So we should, when we're balanced and when we're healthy, we should naturally be able to love the other one. I remember being at a birthday party of a friend of mine, Dottie Janke. I don't know if you know her or not. She was turning 90 at the time, and there was a big marquee in Oxford, and there were probably, 200 people at tables, and we were celebrating her birthday, and people were asking her questions, and she said something like I just said, and someone said, yes, Dottie, but what about the terrorists who did the 9/11 attacks? What about them? Are we supposed to love them too? And how can we ever forget what they did? And she said, you have to love them so completely that you don't even remember that the thing happened. Now, I consider her to be a bit of a saint, so maybe all of us have to do some practice to get to that point. But that's what we're talking about. The healing for brokenness in our world is love. It's love of the self, love of others, regardless of whether they deserve it, and love of the one above, the source, the creator. Because when we open up that current of love with the source, let's just talk about that love for a minute. So when we say we're loving the source, we're loving the supreme, we're loving the one above. Does that one need our love? Not really. Not really. That one is the source of love. That one is a fountain. But when I create a loving connection with that one, it's like I open up a channel. It's like I open up a channel between us and love pours in. And not only love, but cooperation. Now, what does cooperation look like between the individual self and the creator? So with cooperation, we receive whatever we're missing. So maybe I'm missing a little patience. Or maybe I'm missing a little courage. Or maybe I'm missing the ability to forgive. When I open up that channel between the true self and the one above, I receive from that one whatever I'm missing. And I don't have to ask for it. I don't have to petition. I don't have to say, you know what? I'm a little short on patience. Would you mind sending me a little patience? You can do that, but you don't have to do that, because the current between the true self and the creator is a current of light and consciousness and vibration. So the words aren't what make the difference. It's the spiritual presence. It's the vibrations. That one would know what's missing because I've got a little darkness in me, a little weakness in me, and that one would fill my cup in that way. So this is the remedy for everything. Love and cooperation. Love of the self, love between, and then love to and from the Supreme. Now, I want to talk about one other aspect of cooperation, and it's a little bit mysterious. So we talked about love and cooperation, but I'd like to talk about cooperation and humility. So, as Brother Manoj said, in 2007, I worked on a book with my friend Gayatri. And it was actually it was the 90th birthday of Dadi Janki, the party I just told you about. It was her birthday. And so we went to her and said, Dadi, in honor of your 90th birthday, we'd like to write a book for you. And she thought about it for a minute and she said, I don't need a book, thanks. So we went back and talked about it, and we came back to her and said, okay, we want to write a book about something you care about a lot, service. We want to write a book about those who serve. She said, okay. So we wrote a book about altruism, right? Those moments of service in which someone just spontaneously gives of themselves. And the book was called Something Beyond Greatness, Conversations with a Man of Science and a Woman of God. Now, the man of science was a famous biologist in Latin America, Humberto Maturana, and the woman of God was Dadi Janki. So what we did was we looked for these stories of when people did these amazing acts of love and cooperation, these amazing, generous acts of altruism. And then we studied them to see what was going on inside of the person at that time. So I'll share a couple of these with you, and then I want to talk with you a little bit about humility. So one of the stories was about a man that the newspaper, the New York Times, called the subway hero. His name was Wesley Autry, and the story is that he was standing on a railroad platform in New York City in the morning with his two little girls. They were about 3 years old and 5 years old. And next to him on the platform was a young man who began to have a seizure, like an epileptic seizure. And he fell off of the platform and onto the tracks. So Wesley Autry put his little girls in the hands of a stranger standing next to him, and he jumped down on the railroad tracks to try to get this young man off the tracks and back on the platform. But as he was trying to do this, he looked up and he saw the headlights of the oncoming train. So he pushed the young man under him. He laid on top of him and said, "Don't move." The engineer saw them, tried to apply the brakes, but it was too late. So the train rolled over them, and people on the platform are screaming. Finally, the train comes to a halt, and Wesley Autry called out, I'm okay. Tell my girls their father's okay." And everyone on the platform starts applauding and screaming, "You're a hero." So he came out from under the train with the young man. They came up on the platform, and everyone is like crying and saying, "You're a big hero." And he said, "Oh no." He said, "Really, I didn't do anything." He said, "Anybody would have done that." And then everyone left. Now I'm going to tell you another story. This one happened earlier ago. So, and I don't know how many will remember this, but there was a time when a plane was taking off in Washington, D.C. in very bad weather. And as it started, it was an Air Florida plane, and as it started its ascent, it nicked the edge of a bridge and fell into an icy river and started to sink. So there were a number of people who saw this happen because it was right in Washington, D.C., right in a very popular part of the city. And a number of people came running to help. They leapt into the river and they began helping to get the door open on the plane and pulling people out of this plane. A helicopter came and was lifting people up. One man was standing on the wings and he kept handing people up to the helicopter. And this went on for a long time. And finally, people are saying, "You come to the man on the wing. You come, you get on the helicopter." And he said, no. And he kept handing people up. And finally, he went into the river and died. So Time magazine did interviews with those people, with the rescuers. They said, "Wow, that was amazing what you did. What made you leap in that river?" And they each said, "Oh, I didn't do anything." One of them said it was the helicopter pilot. One of them said, "Anybody would have done this." The other one said, "Well, I was standing right there, had to do something, but actually I didn't do anything." So after we found these stories, we flew to India to talk with Dottie about it. And we said, "Dottie, why do these people say that they didn't do anything when they clearly did everything?" I mean, there's photographs of them. There's witnesses. Clearly, they did do these things. Why do they say they didn't do anything? And Dottie said, "This is the way God acts in the world. If it's not someone's time to go, then God will find some instrument and will work through that instrument to get something done." She said, "So of course they did the action, but they weren't the generator of the action. The inspiration for the action and the power for the action came from that one. And on some level, they knew this." This is humility, right? So when you think of cooperation, true cooperation comes with a lot of humility. Because on some level you realize I'm not really the one doing this whole thing. I'm cooperating. I'm providing the body. I'm reacting as quickly as I can. I certainly have the willingness, but it's not only me. This quality of humility. And in fact, when we were looking at the stories in that book on altruism, we realized that there was a pattern there, which was see with a vision of love, act from the heart. That is, they didn't do a lot of thinking. This wasn't about thinking and planning. For real cooperation, real altruism, thinking is like the least important part of it. See with love, act from the heart, and then there's a little bit of magic around right time, right place. So when we think of cooperation, we have to understand that it's a natural law, a universal law. We have to understand that there is no real cooperation without true love. And we see that humility is sort of the evidence of the quality of spiritual cooperation. So there's the visible part of cooperation that we talked about, right, in nature and in the body and in communities. But what really matters is the spiritual machinery underneath. The spiritual machinery being the presence of these natural, innate virtues, or what you might call values for life in this series, that drive everything that's happening on the outside. So it looks like a very brave man leapt onto the platform. That is what happened. But actually underneath, it's an act of brotherly love. Right? It looks like all these heroic people leaping into the river, and it is them leaping into the river on some level, but actually inside, it's really this compassion, this mercy, this sympathy that comes with love. So I really want to stop at this point and just check in with you, because I'm proposing all kinds of things. And I want to check in with you and see if you think I'm crazy, if you've got further questions, you want to take it deeper. What are your thoughts about this business of cooperation?
So thank you so much. We felt it prematurely stopped, but that's fine. We'll patch up with questions and answers.
Okay, and we can also meditate together, but I'd love to hear whatever questions or experiences people have.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean, your talk told us a lot about true love, because cooperation can only happen with love. And as we heard in the spiritual teachings here at Brahma Kumaris, like you can only give cooperation to someone whom you love. So someone is asking that I cooperate with everyone at workplace, probably because I have this feeling of love for all of them, but I never get back any cooperation. Sorry to say that. So I feel quite frustrated. So what to do?
Okay, so this is such a good question. So one aspect of true love, and I want to make a distinction here between loving relationships and relationships of sort of attachment. All right, there's a little bit of a difference. So these are two kinds of relationships. So with relationships of love, they work freely because we don't really have any expectations. We're just giving. We're just donating love. We're just giving. The men who leapt into that river, they didn't expect those people to send them flowers or send them checks or, or anything like that. They were just acting from their heart, right? They didn't expect anything back. When we have a little bit of attachment, and sometimes it can be a very little bit, then there's a disturbance in the field of love. Now, and there's also sadness, a little bit of disappointment or sadness, or sometimes a lot, depending on who the attachment is to. If it's someone in your family, or if it's someone you know well, it can be a lot of pain. But otherwise, it can be just a small amount. But it's a very good question. What if I give and give and give and give? And what if someone doesn't ever say thank you? What if they never give me anything back? What if they don't even appreciate that I'm sharing with them? So the remedy for this disappointment we're feeling is to remove any expectation or hope that we have. Does that sound hard? It might sound a little hard, but actually, if we give because it's a joy, right? Ask anyone, do you prefer to receive presents at Christmas, or do you prefer to give them? Most people, 9 out of 10 people will say, oh, I prefer to give them. I love it when they open the present I bought for them. Giving is its own joy, and that's an aspect of love. Right? Give them. Exactly. That's what everyone wants. So this is an aspect of love. Now, if we feel I'm getting tired, I'm giving and giving and giving, then we need to replenish ourselves. We need to fill up our love, which we do by connecting with the Creator, the source. The source energy is a fountain of love. It's unending love. So when we connect to that one, now we get a flow of whatever we need. So if we're depleted, if we show up saying, I've been giving and giving, I'm really tired, then that one fills us with love. In the ideal, we don't give for anything other than because we are so full. So we cooperate because we are so full ourselves that we have it to share with the other one. If I try to cooperate with the other one, but I'm tired, or I'm run down, or I feel unloved myself, or I feel unvalued myself, then I will become exhausted in that process of cooperation. So it's my obligation to keep myself very full so that I can give without becoming depleted. The world right now is very tired. It doesn't have anything to give us. The air is polluted. The ocean is all full of plastic. The soil has lost its energy, and the human beings are depleted. So the world doesn't have anything to give us. So those who are on a spiritual path, those who are studying meditation, what we're trying to do is to learn how to replenish ourselves spiritually, renew ourselves spiritually, so that we can give, so that we can cooperate, so that we can donate. So self-care is necessary in order for us to be able to give to anyone else. So if you're running out of energy when you help all those people at work, you need to strengthen your own practice of being quiet, being introverted, going to the source, connecting to that source with love, and feeling the current replenishing you. the current of love, the current of peace, the current of joy, kindness, compassion, mercy, sympathy. All of that comes flowing in. And then you are so full that you give from that fullness and you don't need anything in return. I don't know if that makes sense, because I'm not sure where the question came from, but.
That's wonderful. It's a beautiful answer. And what you said, it resonates with one of the quotes from Nelson Mandela about humility. So the quote mentions that if you want the cooperation of humans around you, you must make them feel they are very important. And you do that by being genuine and humble. So do you want to explore about being genuine in my cooperation with everyone, genuinity and humility?
You know, let's actually linger on Mandela, right? Because this is one of the big stories of our time. When we were researching that book and we said, you know, who do you think of when you think of altruism? We got the same names back. And you know who they are, right? Martin Luther King, Mahatma Gandhi, and Nelson Mandela. And sometimes they would mention Mother Teresa. What Mandela did that was so amazing in terms of the way he got cooperation was that he showed deep, natural respect to everyone. He insisted that his jailer from Robben Island sit in the front row at his inauguration. You know, he had this ability to see into people's hearts and to win them over. There's a book written about his negotiations, you know, at the end, it was clear that he was going to become, that he was a leader for this African National Congress. And so the president of South Africa was negotiating with him, and Mandela lived in a little, had his own little, initially he was in a cell and he was in his prison garb. And so the car would go get him to bring him to negotiate with the president. And so after this happened a couple of times, the president said to the one taking care of him, would you go buy him some clothes, please? I can't negotiate with him in his prison outfit. So the caretaker said, no problem. So he took him shopping and got him a nice suit and all of that. And then, so he comes again, the car continues to bring him as they negotiate. And the president said, you know, I really think we should put him in a little cottage closer to me so you don't have to drive so far to get him. So step by step by step, Mandela's complete humility naturally caused the president to elevate him, right? He just gradually cooperated with him and elevated him. So by the time that it was time to transfer power, Mandela was already the vision of leadership, right? But he never insisted. He never said, I need better clothes, I need a cottage. It was always this great humility. And when the president came to see him after Mandela was in office, as soon as the president arrived and took a seat, Mandela leapt up and said, let me get you some tea, and poured the tea for the president with utmost humility. And those witnessing it said, this was the magic, right? This was the magic. So when we show up, it's the opposite of the ego, right? When I show up with humility, I'm seeing all this network of spiritual relationships around me, and I understand what's actually making things work.
Amazing. Mahatma Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Nelson Mandela, and Martin Luther. Yes, there are quite a few questions. I'll just take one by one. I hope you have time for questions.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, okay. So this question pertains to the interruption of cooperation by ego. So the sister is saying that my boss is full of himself, very egoistic. I know that. But he's also very cooperative with me. So how can we say that ego is interrupting cooperation? Can you explain that?
Yes. So ego, like everything, is a spectrum, right? There's a spectrum of ego. At one end is just, okay, I'm a pretty important guy. My paycheck is big, my title is big, and my people are good, right? They're my people and they're good. At the other end is, I am so important that no one else matters. So it sounds like your boss is at the other end. He's probably very proud of you working for him and therefore very cooperative. When someone really, there's an ego of superiority, there's an ego of inferiority. Ego itself is a very complicated subject. I don't want to distract us because I'm sure you have other sessions on ego, but ego is really just about the constructed self as opposed to the true self. So it's the self that I'm the boss, I'm the authority, I'm the important one here. It's that part of it. But someone can have the awareness of that and still have a pretty good heart. But their ego would eventually get in the way in some way. So a realized person would then see, wait a minute, I am one part of this big, amazing world, and I'm carrying my little piece, kind of like ants at a picnic, huh? Got my little crumb and I'm doing my part. So I don't know if that's helpful or not, but.
Oh, yes, absolutely. The next question is a slightly bigger one, but I'll just try to summarize it. That the sister is saying that we need a lot of help and cooperation from each other. However, sometimes receiving and asking for cooperation makes me feel heavy, and I feel that I am weak. And so I'm feeling the need to ask for help.
Sure,
So
that's a good question. That's a really good question.
How do I understand that? I should not be feeling like that, and I want to solve this.
Okay, so it's a very, very good question, and it's a deep question. So let's go a little deep with this. So cooperation in its pure form is naturally given. You might ask someone to coordinate with you. Can you meet me at the corner and we'll trade cars or something? But true cooperation is freely given. So when you say it makes you feel weak and that you need help, the first thing I'd suggest is make sure that you are filling yourself up, right? Because a sense of weakness means that I, the true self, am feeling a little empty. That's why I'm feeling like I might not be worthy. I might not be able to do this myself. I might need to ask for others. So start with filling yourself up. Now, one of the universal laws is cooperation, but another universal law that I talked about earlier is karma, right? So when we are full, so let's say you strengthen your meditation practice. You don't meditate occasionally, you meditate every day. Every morning for however long, you sit down, you go to the true self and you connect. You strengthen, you're building your capacity for love and peace and joy and compassion. In that place, you are naturally giving, even if you have physical limitation. Even if you can't move the mountain by yourself, but you are naturally donating to those around you because you are so full. That magnetizes a response, that magnetizes cooperation. So that's one thing. But the other thing is, don't let the feeling of weakness come. Now, do your spiritual practice. That's number one. But number two is when that feeling comes, oh, I hate asking for help. Say to yourself, I'm giving someone a chance for some very good karma here. They're gonna get a chance to cooperate with me. And you say to whomever is available, look, I can do a lot of this, but I can't do all of it. I'd love some support from whomever's able, right? But don't take any sorrow, because the taking of sorrow is something that you're doing. They're not doing that. And you know that, I can tell from your question. So don't let the sorrow come. So two things, strengthen yourself through your practice and don't let any sorrow or feelings of weakness come. Right?
Amazing answer, because it reminds me of Daddy Janki. I mean, in the spiritual teachings here, we are taught that we don't give sorrow, but we take a lot of sorrow from people, which we should not be doing.
Especially good people, right? This is the problem. So good people are wide open. They show up wide open. And then when someone says something hurtful, they take a lot of sorrow. So we have to realize that we are participating in that, right? We're allowing the sorrow to enter, and we don't want to do that. We have to keep our hearts very, very clean. Dadi Janki used to talk a lot about the importance of having a clean heart. And what clean heart means is I haven't taken any sorrow. I'm not feeling heavy. I'm not feeling afraid. I'm not feeling anxious. My heart is filled with love and courage, and I'm donating that. So we have to look after our own hearts. That's part of self-love, self-cooperation.
It's an amazing, beautiful answer, Sister Judy. Another very challenging situation, particularly from India, I must say. I think this question is from an Indian sister. That because in India, it's the joint family. The culture still goes on, whereby it's between a daughter-in-law and a mother-in-law, a very typical scenario in India. So the daughter-in-law, she's a daughter-in-law. She's saying that I cooperate with my mother-in-law quite a bit, but two emotions which keep coming, and again, starting with C, these two words, competition and criticism. Because I prepare something and my husband always compares that, and I'm in sort of a tug of competition with my mother-in-law, that she makes it better than me, and I don't like this. And then she takes this opportunity and criticizes me. See, I told you you should do this. So, I mean, yeah, the cooperation, though she's cooperating with her in everything, it fizzles out because she's having this energy of competition and criticism. So how to deal with these, but in work life scenarios as well, not only at home.
Right. Okay. Well, let me say, first of all, that I do not want to presume that I understand the Indian culture, but I've heard a lot about mother-in-laws and daughter-in-laws, so I can see that it could be very vexing. I want to go back to something that I said before, because I can really tell that there's quite a bit of pain in this, right? So one thing that Dadi Janki said to me, I took a lot of benefit from Dadi. I spent a lot of time with her. That was a part of my fortune. And one time in India, she was talking in front of a lot of people with a man, because a man from England. He was actually in the House of Lords, and he was complaining to her. It's not fair, my family, they don't support me, et cetera, et cetera. And she was giving him kind of a little miniature course on cleaning the heart. And she said to him, Andrew, everything starts with the heart. The heart takes in sorrow as well as joy and love. And it holds on to the sorrow and the joy and love. And she said, if you're going to manage to get out of this bondage, is what she called it, this bondage you have with your family, you're going to have to clean your heart of these things that are going on in here, these sorrows, these resentments. You're going to have to clean them out of your heart. Now, I think with the case like you're talking about with your mother-in-law, is she behaving badly? Yes, she is behaving badly. Would it be better if she were loving and generous? Yes, but she's not. And you have to live with her. So the only one you can change is you, right? Can't change your husband. And he's poor man, torn loyalties, his mother's cooking and his wife's cooking. You can't change your mother-in-law, but you can change yourself. And this is where spiritual power comes from. Now, you look in your heart, and if you and I had a whole day together here at Peace Village, we would do this together, you and I. We'd take about 6 hours, and we'd give you lots of time to do this, but I'm just going to give you a little prompt. You can learn to look in your own heart and see what's there. And you could see that there's some sorrow from this competing and this criticism that you've taken from your mother-in-law. Now, one way to look at it would be to say, well, of course, she treated me badly. But the other way to look at it is, I am a loving and cooperative soul, and I'm becoming a spiritual master. Now, I may be overstating your aim a little bit here, but most people who are on a spiritual path do want some kind of mastery, right? They don't want every situation at work or every situation at home to knock them off or make them sad. And spiritual mastery is about developing strength inside so that no matter how badly one's mother-in-law behaves, one has good wishes. So what you have to do, and you may say this is totally unreasonable, and you're right, it's totally unreasonable, but what you need to do is you need to develop such love in your heart that whatever she says is just like the breeze outside the door. You have to move out of your heart all those old stories, all those things she's done, and not let those movies play in your mind. I can tell you a little story. I was giving a talk in the Caribbean, and I was very like the talk you and I are having about clean heart and how to do this. It was we had more time together, but it was similar. And this woman came up at the break and she said, can we talk? And I said, sure. So she said, well, I want you to know that my mother-in-law treats me so badly. I said, really? She said, She said she praises her own daughter. She doesn't say anything about me. She gets gifts for her own daughter and her children. She doesn't get anything from me. She doesn't take me anywhere. She doesn't introduce me when we have guests. She was clearly distressed. I said, I am so sorry about this. I said, does your mother-in-law live near you? And she said, oh, she's been dead for 35 years. Now, I'm telling you this because we can carry our sorrow long after these souls are no longer in our lives. And that's up to us. Whatever the mother-in-law does is what the mother-in-law does. That's her karmic return. But for you to become masterful spiritually and be able to give love to that one, that's the victory.
Amazing. People are enjoying your answers because I'm getting more questions. I'll ask a few more. Hope that's okay. Yeah, I'll just take two more. There are two questions and they are similar that you mentioned about something called instrument consciousness. So how do I develop this consciousness of being an instrument? And very closely related to this is the soul is asking that really does God need our cooperation? And can I cooperate God in something such a beautiful feeling? So instrument consciousness and cooperating with God.
Okay. So instrument consciousness is about having a certain awareness. One is the feeling, if I'm not on a spiritual path, if I'm not spiritually awake, then I feel that I am doing everything myself, right? So Wesley Autry on the railroad track would have said he was doing it himself. The men in Washington, D.C. would have said we were heroes. We did this brave thing. We leapt into the water. When we're having a spiritual awareness, even if it's short term, we are aware that there is a greater energy, there is a greater spiritual presence, there is a greater spiritual dynamic at work. And the physical actions are the evidence of that dynamic. So when I connect myself, and this goes back to the three kinds of love, I was urging you to have love for the self, to have love for others, even if they behave badly, right? Even if they're completely unlovable, and to have love for the creator or the source. And that when you have love for the source, you open a channel and you receive everything you need. You receive everything you need. Now, the more you practice this, the more you realize that actually you are an instrument, nimit, right? You are an instrument for something bigger that's going on. The more you surrender your consciousness to the good that's taking place in the world, let me make my mind available. Let me make my body available. Let me make my wealth available for this bigger task of healing in the world. Now you're in instrument consciousness. So for you to really be in instrument consciousness, you need to see yourself as the human being, right? The human part, the being part is the spiritual presence inside. That connects to the source energy, and that's when the spiritual machinery starts to work. So it's that consciousness that you're holding. And the more you develop it, the more you do it, the better it gets, the easier it gets, the more natural it gets, until it would never occur to you that you're doing it, right? You know that it's happening in a bigger way beyond you. And then what was the other one?
Yeah, the second was how to cooperate God. I mean, can we really cooperate with him?
How to cooperate with, does God need my help? Well, what Dottie used to say is, look, God's going to get it done one way or the other. If not you, someone else will show up. That God will take the help of those with a body is true, because the work is material. And if you're ready, if you're in instrument consciousness, then God takes your help. And the beauty of that is you then get the karmic return of that, and you then get the blessings. Everybody thinks Wesley Autry was the subway hero. They're not going to say God was the subway hero, right? They think he was the subway hero. So he gets tons of blessings. And you will get blessings when you cooperate with God in that way. So does he need your help? Well, he'll take your help if you're available. And so if he takes your help, then that's the blessing, right? That's the fortune.
Perfect, because this answers the question which I was supposed not to take. It answers, someone is asking, how do we earn blessings? So you help God and God will give you a lot of blessings. And I'll take the last question. It's a bit paradoxical about that should we keep cooperating a lot? So I'll read the question. Does cooperation stop my self-progress? Because we don't have time to think about self-interest and we keep getting what we want from others. So is it some way hindering, or it's a hindrance to my self-progress, cooperation?
Because I'm not able to focus on what I want, is that the essence? I'm not
able to focus on my self-interest, on my self-progress.
Right, okay. Well, I would say that, and I'm not, let me say, Dottie would certainly say that, and spiritual tracts, classes would also say that when I serve the self, I will naturally serve others. So when you say focus on my self-progress, I'm not sure how that feels to you, what you do to focus on your self-progress. But usually what we say is, all right, so let me become introverted. Let me become aware of my inner self. Let's just do it together, right? So let's just sit here. So you're sitting comfortably. You're not laying down, are you? I can't see any of your faces, but I'm assuming you're sitting. Your feet are either on the floor or they're under you. Make your spine straight. Your neck is over your spine. And right now there's all these words swirling around your head because I've been talking for an hour. So I want you to let all those words float away like clouds. You don't need those words. And you don't need to think. So quiet your mind, invite your mind to become very quiet, right? Turn your attention inside, turn your face inside. And when you're inside, you're in the world of thoughts and feelings, memories, opinions, all of that stuff, the heart. So turn your attention inside and have your mind become quiet. Just tell your mind to become quiet. And when you do that, your thoughts will slow down. And then you tell your mind to become still. You become aware of your breathing. Very quiet, the cadence of your breathing. Now tell your mind to become completely silent. And become aware of yourself as this eternal presence sitting behind the eyes. Right? This is, keep your eyes open. This is the presence that uses the eyes, looks through the eyes. You are the presence that listens through those ears. This body is an instrument for the good you do, but it's not you. So then you turn your attention up with the pure thought that you want to connect with the source of life and love. It doesn't need to take any time. It happens in an instant. You, the true self, connected with the source of life and love. This is your oldest relationship. And every time you connect with this one, you're filled with love. You're filled with courage. With kindness. And as you get filled with these qualities, love and courage and kindness, and you naturally are the source of those, you naturally cooperate with those qualities. Anyone in your connection. So you hold that link with the divine. And now think of one soul in the world who needs your support right now. Just one. And holding that powerful thought of love and cooperation. Allow that vibration to move instantly to that soul. From the source, through you, to that one. And when we do this, we serve the self and we serve the other. Om Shanti.
Thank you so much for this beautiful experience as well. So with this, I would like to conclude and request Sister Claudia to propose the vote of thanks. Over to you, Sister Claudia.
It was so great, Jody. It was very good, deep points that we can see, especially see how important is love for cooperation. And we are taking a lot from you today. And I'm sure everyone who is listening now or is going to listen later on is going to really enjoy. It was a very essential for us today because today is we remember Christ, which is the source of love in this earth, and then he was the instrument to show the love from God to many. So today we remember him, but also we have to go back to the source, which is Christ used to say, "Go to the Father and to get from him." So thank you very much. It was very inspiring today to listen to you. Thank you for being with us. And also I like to thank
Thank you,
everyone.
Claudia. Thank you, Manoj. Thank you, all of you. It was lovely.
So sorry, before you go, a few more minutes. So thank you, Sister Claudia. And I would request Sister Anu to quickly do the announcements and the group photo, maybe the photo as well first, because people start switching on their cameras then.
Okay, and then also we can do the announcement and
Drishti Yoga.
and maybe the last few minutes, Sister Judy, if you have time, we can hold on to that loving vision that you very thoroughly, deeply took us in, and take drishti from you with as little music, 2-3 minutes. So, okay. So 3 things. We have to start with taking our picture with Sister Judy. So whoever like to have the photo, please open your video. Still, there is one more few seconds. I can wait. Anyone? We got that. And very quickly, I'll also make the announcements that as we all know, this is our journey. We have the workshop on cooperation after 1 week, as we always do after the talk. That will have experiential exercises further, as Sister Judy also beautifully in her meditation took us through. We'll have experiential exercises to deepen that value of cooperation within us. And also we'll have Brother Neville joining us from GRC UK, who will, give us more insightful talk information about cooperation and meditation. So it's happening on Sunday instead of our regular Saturday, Sunday, 1st of January, evening 7:30 p.m. for India time. Please note the timing, and it would be very early, 6 a.m. for West Coast, US, Canada, and that's 9 a.m. for East Coast. So I think we all will love to start our new year, 6 a.m. here with this beautiful virtue, the value. So please join us, note other information. And the next session is episode 56 on solitude. That's in Hindi Ekan. And we'll have our very dear Jayanti Didi joining from UK. She's the additional chief administrative head of Brahma Kumaris, and she's the European director of Brahma Kumaris. So it's happening 7th of January, Saturday, regular time, 7 a.m. West Coast, US, Canada, 8:30 p.m. India time. So please note. And you can get all this information on our websites. That's vyasa.in and vancouver.brahmakumaris.ca. You can get the videos, and I'm sure a very, very powerful video of today's session with Sister Judy on our YouTube channels. That's Vyasa India and Brahma Kumaris. Thank you, everyone. And it would be really great to sit in a few minutes of that beautiful silence. Yeah?
Is my is my
So thank you so much once again, Sister Judy.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Merry Christmas.